Welcome to the kickoff for Finish for Your Future. My name is Visger. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor, Institutional Collaboration and Completion. And I dare you to say that 3 times fast. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and which is really trying to focus on increasing supports for adult learners. And so, a little bit of my story that I started out doing college access work, working with Upward Bound, working directly with traditional ed students. Then in 2000, I got a job with a philanthropic organization that was just getting started, and they gave me a portfolio that had not been created, and it was called Education for Low-Wage Workers. And I was like, oh, what's this? And after a little bit of time, and I knew nothing, I was really dumb. And the hook got set. Seeing the passion that so many adults have, everybody wants to do better. Everybody wants to find ways to advance their career, have a better life. We just sometimes have to find new tools to show them. So I've been fortunate to have opportunities that have helped me work to advance adults. So this is an opportunity that we're really looking at to think and elevate the importance of adult learners in Ohio. So in getting at today, you all received 2 lovely gifts as you walked in. One was the agenda, and the other is just a very brief overview of the initiative. And with the agenda, we're going to talk through, we'll start, I'll show you some data, and we're fortunate to have a great panel, slate of speakers today to talk about their experiences working directly with adult learners. The part that I really want to say and impress on you, it is possible to improve outcomes for adult learners. Other people have done it, they have success, so it is really critical, and you'll see demographically why it's critical. And then we're going to learn from our friends at Kale on their principles of effective learning. Then at lunch, it's a chance for you to connect with people who are in similar roles, sit at your table, have some conversation. And then we have somebody from Graduate Network talking about their efforts to bring adults back and how do you connect with adults and move them through. Some breakout sessions, one's on prior learning assessment, one is getting in how do you provide support for students. The other is more directly on the Graduate Network and how to reconnect students. So then it's coming back and talking about how it all goes together. So that's really the overview of the day. As we get into this, one of the pieces that I really want to impress on everybody, this is not new. None of this is new. This is a building on things that many of you have been working on for many, many years. So part of this is, and in a former job, I did get in trouble once for saying that my job is to sell used ideas. And I said that purposefully because a lot of this work is iterative, drawing on what things have already done. There has been PLA at almost all of your institutions for 40 years. How you do that at scale is an opportunity to think differently. There are military offices at your institution. There's a lot of things that you are already doing. We have national exemplars. One of the things I get to do is go to a lot of different conferences, and invariably, as I'm at a conference where they talk about a national promising practice, I can come back to Ohio and find somebody doing it. So I know that many of you in this room are doing a lot of the great work already. And hopefully this will give you tools to elevate your work on your campuses. So one of my pet peeves is reading through PowerPoints. So I know everybody in the room can probably read well, but there's a litany of things that we could pull together and look at. In 2015, the Regents had a report on reconnecting adult learners. And that actually, the recommendations in that served for a lot of the backbone of what we're doing with Finish for Your Future. And we were pleased to be one of a handful of states selected by Lumina Foundation to receive support to elevate adult learners. And so this opportunity is something that is really timely for the state, is really timely for us to think about as we're moving forward. So, Finish for Your Future. We put in our goal that we want, right now, we're at 27% adult enrollment in Ohio. And we're below the national average, and you're going to see this data point multiple times. Adults are over 25. National average is 38%, Ohio is at 27. And you'll see shortly why that's critical to get us back to at least the national average, and I'd like to think slightly above. So there are three components, and this one pager that's in your handout describes the components of Finish for Your Future. Engagement is first one. Welcome, we're engaging. And then we get to capacity building. But engagement is going to be more than just having a conference. We're going to impanel an adult learner working group, which we will be reaching out to many of you to say and play a role. We need your knowledge, we need your experience and thoughts to make sure that we're providing the right information and an access to policy. And then there's another point to it, which we're partnering with CALE. Institutions would choose whether or not they wanted to do the AL360 to understand what their capacity is, their strengths and weaknesses in serving adult students. And that leads to the capacity building. For those institutions that chose, there's a competitive grant opportunity. And then there's another part that we're going to focus on, which is communications. And there's a few themes that are going to hit on throughout the day. And one of those is really communication. And how do we communicate more effectively to adults? How do we make sure that they get the message that indeed they can come back and they can succeed? So that's the big overview of Finish for Your Future. I'm going to guess that a few of you have heard that Ohio has an attainment goal. Our current average is 44.1%, and that by 2025 we're looking to get to 65%. Setting the big picture, these are national data from Lumina. 90 million people in the US fit having less than a post-secondary degree. That's a lot of Americans. But the thing that's really interesting, and if you can see at the top, there's a little bar that shows the length of the 90 million people. And what's critical is the average income of those folks is less than $30,000 a year. So thinking about what that means for people's lives, what it means for how they're really trying to figure out paying bills and managing. The other part of that fits people who are in active duty military, there's a whole lot. The other part that is also critical to pay attention to, underrepresented populations are oversampled in this group. So if you look at the bars on the right hand side, you'll see that the equity populations, African Americans represent 12% of the population, but only 9% of people with post-secondary credentials. And those with Latinos, there are 3 million fewer people with credentials, post-secondary credentials, than with high school degrees. We have to do something. We have to really pay attention as a nation. Our economic health depends on this. So, educational attainment in Ohio. This is kind of, so it started with the big picture, drilling it down a little bit. First box is less than high school, or less than ninth grade. Then ninth grade. Then the biggest group, which you all book? The biggest group is high school graduates. A third of Ohio's adults are aged 25 to 64, have a high school diploma, and no post-secondary. They have not even tried to go to post-secondary. They are just going straight into the workforce. And then we've got 1.4 million adults with some college and no degree, 1.6. Embedded in that number are people who have certificates. It's a smaller proportion, we estimate. It's about 400,000 folks. But there's, the point being, there is almost 3.5 million Ohioans who are aged 25 to 64, prime working age, who don't have a post-secondary credential. These are a lot of people that we need to get into the workforce and get trained. Other key component, this one, if this doesn't frighten you, I don't know what will, or at least wake you up to think that we have to do a better job with adults. This is high school graduates in Ohio. So the high water mark that you all can see is at about 130,000, and that was in 2011. And we are declining downward on an annual basis. This is the number of high school graduates on an annual basis. It's declining to about 2030 when it's 100,000. This is high school graduates a year. So that's about a third fewer, or a quarter fewer folks, that traditional age students that lots of people are all fighting over trying to get in. So that's a big component. Now, here is the picture of adult, or of enrollment in Ohio, and over time. So this is all of the sectors added together. OTCs, community colleges, universities. The top bar are traditional age students. So, and the red bar is adults over 25. The bottom is college credit plus. And so, one of the things that's really interesting, I'm sure everybody in this room knows about the counter-cyclical nature of folks in the recession. You'll see the dip up during the recession when people go back to school. The thing that is fascinating is now, adults especially, we are at below pre-recession levels. So right now, as I mentioned before, our average statewide of adult enrollment in post-secondary is 27%. National average is 38%. We've got fewer high school students graduating. I'll let you kind of do the mental math of what this looks like. But this is all of it. And it gets interesting. There's a lot of questions on why this is going down. We have relatively good employment, very low unemployment, so whether or not people are feeling pain to go back. But I think there's some other stuff going on, but I'm not going to get into all that. Technical centers. If you're not familiar with technical centers, you should be. They are post-secondary accredited providers, adult providers of certificates. They have Type 4A, they go through all the accreditation, we have all kinds of stuff. They do about 13,000 technical certificates a year. They're seeing a decrease. They serve the highest proportion of adults over 25 out of all of our sectors. Two-year colleges. So this one's pretty fascinating to me. So adults had been the highest proportion for the longest time, more than traditional students. That was more so during the recession, but we're now at a point where adult enrollment has dipped below traditional student enrollment. And college credit plus enrollment's gone through the roof. So a lot of interesting things going on that slide. Then universities. Universities have done pretty well with traditional aid students, and they aren't having the drop off. So more students are going to public universities. The lines are flat. The other part about this at our universities, again, it's a relatively flat line on College Credit Plus and with adults, but neither of those make up a big proportion of the overall. So, how do they do? So this is really getting to the a lot of the key points. So, between 2011 and 2016, adult enrollments declined by a third. And we talked about that big pool. We have 3.7 million Ohioans between 25 and 64 who don't have a post-secondary credential. There's a lot of folks that we could be serving and doing more effectively. So, how do adults do in post-secondary? This is from National Student Clearinghouse data. And the bar on your left is 24 and under. The bar on the right is over 24. So, and this is a cohort analysis 6 years out. So the nice thing about the Student Clearinghouse data, they can follow folks as they move around the system. What institutions do they go to, even if they move from different states, et cetera. So adults or people over 24 basically adds up to, in the higher 50, that people are going, and still going. For adults, it's closer to about 38% have earned a credential. And they have 44% who aren't persistent. So, takeaway from that, adults are finding it harder to persist. So let's look at Ohio data. This is the OTCs. And we don't have many OTC, do we have any OTC reps here? One. We had a couple that were signed up, they had another meeting this week. So, there is very little difference between the completion rates of adults and traditional students. Their certificate programs run from very short to long. They have a sizable proportion that are almost 2 year long. And the way the programs are set up is, I'm going to be a medical assistant. You have to go however many nights, it's from 8 to 9:30, you have to show up every 4 nights. And everything that's packed into those to be a medical assistant is offered in that space of time. And they just show up. They don't have to sign up for classes. They know they can predict when they have to be there to juggle childcare, to juggle work schedules, and they can plan. And at least in my estimation, that's a lot of the reason why their completion rates are pretty high. So this is taking the folks who started in 2016 going out to 2019. How did they do? So again, so this is that cohort. So 70% of people who started at OTCs, 70% of adults who started at OTCs a couple years out had a piece of paper that had labor market value. 2-year colleges. Little bit of a difference. This is a 6-year cohort. So people, first-time students starting in 2012, going out 6 years. Again, the bar on the left is traditional aid students. The bar on the right is 25 and older. The blue bar for 25 and older, 18% had any post-secondary credential 6 years later. That's certificate, associate, bachelor's degree. 18%. Universities. very similar. And this matches a little bit with the national data. But as what we're looking at is 38% of adults over 25, 6 years out, who started in a university, had any credential 6 years in. This is a piece, if we take all of this together, my overall feeling is we have an imperative to do better for the adults that walk in through our door. So, who are today's adult students? This is one of these pieces, and again, I know everybody in the room probably knows these data, but they're critical to go through. 58% work while enrolled. 40% only attend part-time. 47% support themselves as they're doing it. They're not relying on their parents. Again, 38% are older than 25, and 26% are raising children. They have a lot of stuff going on. The other thing, this slide fascinates me. There is a difference between how people approach their studies as they age. And is a question where you think of yourself as a learner who works or a worker who learns. And as this moves along by different age bands, the orange bar are for folks that view themselves as employees who decided to enroll in post-secondary education versus students who have a job to help support themselves. Very critical frame about how they approach their schooling, where things fit in, and important to really think about. So a few years ago, Public Agenda did a survey of adult learners, really asking them, what's critical for you? And there are really 7 points that came through, and it's a great report. It's available on the web. We're going to post all of our material, the PowerPoints and links to stuff after the conference, so if you want to go back and refer to things. Their big thing that came out, driving concern for adults to go back. Can I afford it, and can I make it fit in my busy life? 2 really simple things. But it really breaks down. A lot of folks are pretty realistic. They know they've been out of school for a while. They'll have to go to remedial education. They want to take classes online, maybe in a hybrid sort of way. And the way they learn about education is often from friends or websites or and it's something to really think about. They don't pay attention, they don't know a difference between a proprietary school and a public institution. There are a lot of different things, and a lot of times, even what they're coming in choosing to do, that's only because their cousin told them that it was good to be a computer science person. And they don't really know. I'm going to attribute this to Denny Michelau, who is at Witchy. They did a long adult learner initiative. She's boiled down the 3 things that adults care about when they come back to school. Can I make it work with my busy life? How much will it cost? And what will my ROI be? Can I fit all this in? Am I going to drive to something that is going to elevate my wages and help me move along? Very, very simple questions that there are lots of different ways that go about answering this. Now, here's where I get into some qualitative, opinionated sorts of things. This is a challenge that often has Henry Ford. Any customer can have a car painted any color he wants as long as it's black. Our tendency in higher ed is to say, come on in, earn 120 credits in this way. Take these placement tests, do these things in the way that we've established for everybody. And are there things in that model that we're trying to do that are meeting the needs of adult learners and trying to figure out how it's offered in ways that that fits in busy people's lives? There's going to be a bunch of themes that run through today, but some of the solutions and the research that comes out about addressing adult concerns, really 5 big buckets, and I think you'll hear these in a bunch. Welcome them. Tell them you want them there. Advertise. Make them present on their website. Make them know that they can be there. There's a high anxiety for adult learners. Even if somebody at some college and no degree, they think that other people have more information than they do. They think like, oh geez, I was here 3 years ago. Somehow everything's radically changed and I don't know what to do. Welcome them. Make sure that they know what to do. Validate their learning outside the classroom. They are fully formed adults. They have had training through work. They have had tremendous work experience. PLA helps students succeed. You'll hear this from a number of corners. The average person who gets PLA credits earns 9.9 more credits while enrolled. And that's not the PLA credits, those are the additional credits. And I think a large part of that is they feel validated by the institution. That somebody said, hey, you're all right, we know that you know things. Provide a coach. This gets a little bit back to some of the other pieces that I said earlier about welcoming them. They don't want us to get a call. Go to the bursar's office. Go to financial aid office. Go to advisor. They want one stop. They want somebody who can tell them how to navigate that. Predictable scheduling. I talked a little bit about that with the OTCs. And then toward funding. Admittedly, there isn't a lot of adult-focused funding. Even Title IV aid, it's difficult. But to the extent that you can have direct conversations with students and make resources clear is really critical. So those are, as you were talking through the day, my request to you is to think about these 3 big frames. And as you're going back to your institutions and doing work, how are you answering these questions for adults as they walk through your door?